order the CalPERS Board of Administration offsite meeting. And first order of business is roll call. Mrs. Hopper, please.
Henry Jones,
Here.
Margaret Brown,
Good morning.
Rob Fechner,
Good morning.
Frank Ruffino for Fiona Ma,
Good morning, everyone.
Matthew Seha,
Good morning.
Lisa Middleton,
Good morning.
David Miller,
Good morning.
Stacy Oliveris,
Good morning.
Arena Ortega,
Good morning.
Michelle Mitchell, Jason Perez,
Here.
Ramon Rubacava,
Here, and good morning.
Teresa Taylor,
Good morning.
Shonda Wesley,
Good morning.
Betty Yee,
Good morning.
Lynn Paquin. I believe that's all, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hopper. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Mr. Perez to lead us in the pledge. Mr. Perez.
All right. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance.
to the flag of the United States,
of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
with liberty
Liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good morning and welcome to our first virtual offsite meeting of the CalPERS board. Even though we've had several virtual board meetings by now, this is our first offsite meeting being held virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So let me thank my fellow board members for your willingness to adapt to this environment and to press on with board business. I also would like to thank the CalPERS team for their outstanding work to conduct business each day under these new circumstances, and our stakeholders for staying engaged with board business. We appreciate you all. We'll meet today through Wednesday and hear presentations from invited guests and CalPERS team members each day. Today is devoted to investments. Tomorrow we'll concentrate on our health programs as well as our strategic plan and legislative issues. Wednesday, we will mostly devote to diversity and inclusion and the board's role in supporting and enhancing our CalPERS culture. We have a busy agenda for each day, so I won't delay in getting us started. I do want to remind everyone that our offsite meetings are intended as educational sessions that enable the board to dive deeper into the issues affecting our mission to deliver retirement and health benefits. It's important that we approach these sessions with an open mind and participate in the discussion without reservation or concern for the judgment of others. Offsite meetings have historically been an environment to learn and ask questions, and I hope this one will be as well. We normally meet at a hotel and unable to webcast this meeting, but given the current environment, we are able to webcast the next 3 days for this meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Chief Executive Officer to get us started. Welcome, Ms. Frost.
Great. Thank you, President Jones, and good morning, everyone. As we meet again in this virtual platform, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to have a serious impact on all that we do. With cases in the US and here in California as well on the rise, the experts are anticipating that it will be some time before we can move back into phase 3 of California's resilience roadmap, enabling us to bring in more of our workforce. Protecting the safety of our employees, our members, and the board is our top priority for every decision that we're making right now. Beyond that, our focus is on continuing to deliver the service to our members while maintaining the business operations in the most productive way possible. So let me give you a quick update on the COVID-19 operations. Our executive team continues to meet in our morning huddle to monitor COVID-19 updates from state and local officials, and to also review key data from our COVID-19 dashboard that we created internally for the executive team to use data in order to inform our decision making. We continue to operate with about 80 to 85% of our workforce on site, teleworking, while about 250 or so have to come on site each day in order to perform those duties. These are duties that would not be able to be performed in a remote environment, but also very important that these individuals are on site, they're opening the mail, they're indexing. We have people in our contact center as well. And that way, the people who are working remotely continue to have work to do. We're also closely following our safety and sanitation guidelines to protect those who are coming into the building. That would include frequent cleaning of high-touch areas. We're requiring face coverings in all of our community areas. Really, the only time that an employee who comes into the buildings, the only time they're not required to wear a face mask is if they're sitting at their workstation alone. And I want to take a moment just real quickly to thank both our security and our custodial personnel that are in the buildings. They've done an outstanding job during these very difficult times. Our regional offices do remain closed for in-person appointments, but we continue to talk with our members over the phone and provide them with the assistance they need. We've also started some virtual chats for people who would rather have a face-to-face conversation with us. Our COVID-19 dashboard is showing us that our teams are continuing to not only meet the performance targets we have set, but they're also exceeding them. And just a little bit of data to share with you. 97% of the benefits are being processed accurately and in a timely manner, and that exceeds our service level goal of 95%. Customer satisfaction ratings are equally high at around 95%, which is right on target. 58% of our members have processed their retirement applications online through MyCalPERS, and that number is since March, which is a historic high for us. Normally, that number would be right around 35%. There are some new innovations to report as well. A new system feature was added that allows CalPERS team members to securely email forms to members and business partners like employers. That does save some time, not only for our business partners, but as well as for the team. And that, obviously creates a bit of convenience for everyone. Speaking of online activity, the COVID-19 information we're providing on our website continues to be important to our members. We're taking information that's coming through our contact center about why people are calling, and then ensuring that we have that data readily available to our 2 million members who may have questions about how CalPERS is operating during this time. The frequently asked questions page about COVID-19 has been the second most visited page on our site since March, and our online perspective article entitled COVID-19 Changes Rules for Working After Retirement is one of the highest viewed articles on that page. And then finally, our monthly newsletter email is performing well also. Not only is it receiving very high levels of engagement, but we can see consistent spikes in website traffic related to each month's content. And all of the success is really attributable to the outstanding efforts of the employees who are highly engaged in the mission, but really very dedicated and committed to continuing to serve our members during this time. The executive team and I are obviously very proud of the team. Thank you, President Jones, for also extending the board's appreciation for their work. Throughout the pandemic, I've continued to provide our team with daily and weekly communications to keep them informed, whether those are, whether that's information that's happening around us or whether that's information happening within CalPERS. On average, we have about 1,700 team members tuning in each week to the web chat, and I've been doing those almost every Friday. We've taken a couple of Fridays off. And last week, I think what we're seeing is that as I've continued to invite additional executive team members into the chats, we continue to get great questions from the team. Last week, we had Ben Mang on. Next week, we'll have Marlene Timberlake-Deodamo. We also last week released the return to office plan out to the entire organization, and it does closely follow all of the state and local guidelines and includes contingencies for how we'll handle potential spread of the virus as we slowly phase employees back. But as I said, we have no idea of that exact return date, but we'll continue to keep our team updated as well as keeping the board informed. Moving on now to today's investment agenda, we're going to start the morning off with a presentation on human capital management. It's one of the 3 forms of capital that are reflected in our investment beliefs. There's a strong correlation between how companies treat their employees and outperformance. And as we know, human resources policies are undergoing quite a bit of examination right now by many public companies as well as private. However, there's work to be done to establish reporting standards to have much more transparency on these topics so that investors understand the risks that we're taking on as we're investing in a number of companies. We also have 2 fireside chats to look forward to on public equity and private equity, and our guest presenters are esteemed in their fields, and we're fortunate to have them join us today. And then we'll move on to the mid-cycle review of our asset allocation process, first with a presentation broadly focused on the economic and market factors we take into consideration when we set up the strategic portfolio allocations. And then that will be followed by a discussion with our financial, actuarial, and investment teams to guide us on a review of the ALM process and timeframes. And then rounding out the day is a discussion on capital market assumptions. And I think you'll find that obviously very important as we get ready to go into that cycle. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to President Jones, but I know that our Chief Investment Officer, Ben Meng, would also like to make a few introductory remarks to the agenda today. Thank you. President Jones, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Mr. Meng, you would like to make your comments now, and then I'll go to the next item on our agenda.
Yes, thank you, Henry, and thank you, Marcy. Good morning, everyone. Before I preview today's agenda, I would like to share a few thoughts on what has happened since we were last together. We are in the midst of a very challenging time. Although we went into this crisis well prepared, we face continuing uncertainty, particularly as it relates to the state of the economic recovery. This has resulted in extreme levels of market volatility since early March. Even though the shape and pace of the recovery is still an open question, the equity market has rebounded from the March lows in a very dramatic fashion. In fact, for the second quarter ending June 30th, the S&P gained roughly 20%. And from the market lows reached on March 23rd, the US index has recovered nearly 40%. Given the ongoing level of uncertainty, this type of extreme market volatility will almost certainly continue for the foreseeable future. However, even under these challenging conditions and in a continued remote work environment, I'm glad to report that our investment team has been able to continue their work on behalf of our members. I have been impressed with the efforts of so many. I would like to take a moment to extend a big thank you for the tireless efforts of our team, which has enabled us to weather this storm. As I have shared with you, the team has been preparing for this type of market environment, and as a result, we find our framework and governance much better positioned to handle these challenges. I would also like to take a moment to give a special thank you to Mike England for his great work serving as our interim managing investment director of real assets. Mike did such a wonderful job, especially considering that he assumed that responsibility in the midst of this challenging environment. So thank you, Mike. And finally, for fully supporting our ability to successfully stay the course and maintain our role as a long-term investor, I want to acknowledge the vital role of CalPERS board, which has allowed us to focus on the long term and to take the opportunities which market dislocation offers so that we can navigate the storm on behalf of our members. With these conditions likely to persist, it is imperative that we maintain our long-term focus, discipline, and continue to stick to our plan. At the investment committee last month, a question was raised about why we are committing more capital to private equity while its quarterly performance underperformed its benchmark. As we know, private equity is an asset class that requires a long horizon, almost always in years, not in quarters or months, to realize its full benefits. Given the long-term nature of private equity as an asset class and the imperfections of benchmarking for the asset class, we continue to expect volatility around its benchmark relative performance. Taking in longer periods, however, we expect private equity to consistently exceed its public equity alternatives. As we are finalizing our performance for fiscal year 2019 to 2020, it is likely that private equity outperforms its benchmark on an annual basis. As we move forward, it will be increasingly important that we all stay the course as a long-term investor. Since I presented to the board last month, CalPERS investment strategy towards the 7% solution has received widespread coverage in the media. This helps our members, employers, and stakeholders know that we have a plan to strengthen the fund going forward. I realize that our plan touches on some complex issues such as leverage. We welcome comments and questions as these help us to learn as we go. However, there has also been some misunderstanding about the plan. One concern has been expressed about leverage. For the record, let me go back to my remarks at the June Investment Committee. We are not leveraging the portfolio by 20% overnight. We are going to move gradually, prudently, and opportunistically as part of our commitment to more assets and better assets, so that we can move towards the risk-adjusted 7% returns our members and employers rely on over the long term. As we follow this gradual implementation strategy, it is important to understand that it may take up to 3 to 4 years to fully implement this strategy. And while some results will be seen relatively quickly, it may take up to 10 years for us to fully benefit from this strategy. Thus, it is important for us to keep a long-term focus. Now let's move on to our agenda for today, which I hope you will find to be informative and engaging. First, we are going to be joined by a very impressive panel of experts to discuss the current state of the investment strategy related to human capital management. Then we will hold 2 fireside chats covering the current environment facing public equity index providers and investors, followed by a look at the evolution of private equity over the years. And after lunch, Wilshire will lead an asset allocation education session, with the day concluding with a view of our asset liability management process and the methodology behind our capital market assumptions. Thank you to all of our excellent speakers for joining us today. Now I would like to, Mr. Jones, now I would like to hand over to you, back to you.
Okay,
before we hand over to the first panel. Mr. Jones, back to you. Thank you.